Charleston's first Truck Expo will roll into the Exchange Park in Ladson this Saturday to provide educational tools for truckers, truck companies, and the community. Today, I talk one-on-one with the organizer of the expo, Corisa Carter, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Corisa Carter, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you. Good morning, Quintin. I appreciate you having us.
Oh, you're welcome. I know that obviously you are a local logistics business owner here in the Tri-County region, and now you're the organizer of the Charleston Truck Expo, which is coming up very soon, I believe this weekend. Tell me, why a Charleston Truck Expo? Why Charleston?
Awesome. Well, that's a really good question, and I appreciate you asking. I don't think a lot of people realize that the foundation of our trucking industry really does begin with the port. So I got into logistics over 23 years ago. I started at a container company here locally in Mount Pleasant and worked there for a couple of years before venturing out into the trucking side of the industry. And they're very closely related. And with Charleston having one of the larger ports on the southeast coast, we fund a lot of business, a lot of imports and exports out of our ports. So truck drivers are very important to our economy. The trucking industry is important to our economy. The port is the foundation of Charleston's economy. So I wanted to get everybody together that was related within our industry, maybe, and put them in one room, so that we that are in the industry could explain to our community what it is that we do, to let you all in a little bit on the other side of the trucking world. And there were a lot of people who are trying to get into the trucking industry, especially since COVID. Once trucking made national news about the supply chain failures that we had with the shortage of drivers, and a lot of people started working for themselves, opening their own trucking companies to be independent contractors. We also started getting calls from people who wanted to open dispatching services. So I thought this would be a great opportunity. So one day I walked in and I asked the staff, what do you think about throwing an expo for people in the trucking industry and just for our community? And they were like, let's do it, Corisa. So I have a great team supporting me, and I do want to thank them, the staff at CM Transportation, as well as my Charleston Expo committee. They've really been doing all of the hard work. They just call me and say, hey, what do you think? But most of them, their ideas have already been great. But yes, sir. We wanted to bring the trucking industry frontline, since it is one of our biggest parts of the foundation of Charleston, and see if we can get everybody together to have a great time.
So since 2021, Ms. Corisa, how many people have actually started their own trucking companies?
Well, you would really be surprised. I actually had 5 owner-operators that were contracted to me, just me alone. So I do believe the numbers have actually, for the Charleston area itself, has reached over like 100 to 120 new trucking companies that were developed just in the last year. Wow. And that could just be you, Quintin. You could say, hey, I want to drive for myself. I don't want to work for Corisa anymore. So an individual owner operator went out, got their motor carrier authority and their USDOT number, and became their own trucking company.
Wow. So overall, where are you guys right now with the shortage of truck drivers?
Wow. And even though it just made national news kind of during COVID, we've been experiencing this for years. I like to mention that, when vocational training came out of high schools, a lot of technical jobs, kids, we pushed our kids to go to college and get a 4-year degree, or even continue on to get their master's degree. So we stopped talking about welding and electricians and getting your CDL. So I don't think as many people in the younger generation were going to technical schools or interested in technical jobs. So we've already seen the decrease in the number of available drivers in the drivers pools for those of us that are already in trucking. So this has been it's been a long time coming. And what actually happened was, once the world shut down because of COVID, and then the world reopened, there were more loads to be delivered than there were trucks and drivers to fill those trucks. So it backlogged everything. So yes, sir, we've been experiencing a driver shortage pretty much my whole career. I would say in 20 years, we've never really been able to keep up with supply and demand. But after COVID, it got really bad because, our workload increased probably by 5 times the amount of loads we used to deliver once the world opened back up.
And how many loads need to be delivered right now overall?
Well, right now, because of the supply chain, because of the interruption in the supply chain, it kind of has a trickle down effect. So, one thing that people may not realize is when you've seen on the news that there were container ships off of the coast of Los Angeles,
Yeah.
well, they started rerouting some of those ships. What Los Angeles couldn't get unloaded, that it may bypass Los Angeles and come to Savannah. What Savannah couldn't get unloaded would bypass Savannah and come to Charleston. So right now we're actually on the downslope. So since they started splitting up the different services, we're not backlogged on the loads. We have drivers who maybe aren't even working 5 days because there's still container ships off the coast of Los Angeles or off the coast of Savannah that were waiting to get to Charleston. So we were overwhelmed probably for a year, and now things are kind of getting back to normal. But the volumes are changing depending on the services. So right now we're not too backed up on the trucking side. So it's the ports that are backed up.
Wow. Okay, so what was the trucking pool prior to COVID?
So the trucking pool prior to COVID, I would say we run a terminal of about 43 owner operators. So we find loads for those 43 guys, to run out of the Port of Charleston. And they were pretty much working 6 days a week. So just me individually, 43 drivers working 6 days a week. We were getting the toilet paper to the shelves. So it has slowed down a little bit. But the driver pool, I believe, is increasing, and as well as the different positions that we have in the trucking industry, like dispatching, freight brokerage, towing companies. So we're seeing those numbers increase on the individual owner operator level, which is also taking some of the strain off of the larger trucking companies and helping to get the supply chain back in order.
And this is probably, I know this is a question later down the line in this interview, but I want to bring it up right now. But who is your target audience for this, as far as the trucking industry?
Well, our target audience, I believe we really should be speaking to those high school seniors who are coming out of high school and don't want to go to college. Not everyone wants to do another 4 years of school. So I believe my target audience are men and women, because we have a lot of women who are getting behind the wheels of big trucks. So the men and women who are coming out of high school between the ages of 18 and 30, at least to get started. Some of our owner operators have been driving as long as I am old. So we have 70-year-old owner operators who've been driving for 40 years. So those that get in at 18 to 20, when you're 60, you hopefully would still be in good enough shape to keep driving and make a career out of it. So our target audience is 18 to 30, but it doesn't mean that there aren't other opportunities for those who are over, 30.
And the trucking industry has halted what percentage of the freight transported to South Carolina in 2021?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yeah, the trucking industry has halted what percentage of freight transported into South Carolina?
So I would say that it has not. The percentage would probably be about 10%, but it's still being rerouted. So even though it technically may not come through our port, it could be rerouted and trucked from Savannah, or it could be put on one of the rails and railed from the West Coast, or maybe railed from New York. So it never technically halts. It only changes direction.
So with that 10%, that equates to how many tons?
Well, the TEUs that the port is the port's displaying, they like to tell us the increase, and that is the number of containers that are coming in on those container ships. Since we're able to receive larger vessels at the South Carolina ports, then those numbers technically haven't changed. They may import in empty containers so that we can increase the export containers. Now for us, I would say based on our production, from our 6 day a week work week, we may have a 4 day a week work week. So with the difference in those, that's 86, maybe 86 loads that we're seeing a little shortage on. And I would just say that's probably happened only in the last 6 months.
Wow. So let me ask you this, Ms. Corisa. How much has the size of the truckload market grown year over year?
It definitely has grown. I would say that it is doubled. I mean, COVID really because some warehouses shut down completely, some countries shut down completely. One of the largest countries that we import from, which a lot of people, we hear about tariffs and everything, but China is where we get a lot of our imports. When China shut down, that truckload mark, it wiped out a lot of freight for us coming inbound. So once they reopened, now they are reopening at full capacity, but they're trying to probably export twice as many container shipments into the U.S. So we went from China shipping nothing to us to China shipping double to us. So the increase in the truckload, the number of trucks and the number of truckloads doubled.
So why are loads paying so low?
Actually, COVID has finally brought us to a price increase. I like to tell people, I don't know if I really realized until COVID, but a lot of our loads paid the same thing when I started in trucking 23 years ago that they were paying now. Why don't truck drivers get a rate increase? Why don't we get a cost of living increase? We do see an increase when the diesel prices increase at the pumps, so the drivers will get an incentive, to pay for more fuel. Well, when the countries began to reopen after COVID, supply and demand allowed us to finally implement a serious price increase for our drivers. So now the warehouses, since nothing shipped in from COVID, now the warehouses were running low on inventory. So everybody was hot. Everything's hot. Everybody needs their loads. We need this. We need to get this on the floor. So it was, Corisa, we need this delivered Monday. And we would say, well, we're booked Monday. And they would start saying, what if I pay more? Can I get an expedited shipment? So supply and demand actually allowed us to drive our rates up, and for these drivers and owner operators in our industry to see a rate increase probably for the first time in 20 years.
Wow.
So the rates were low. They were low, Quintin. You're absolutely right. But now they've almost doubled.
Wow, that's amazing news. And let me ask you this. Has semi-truck prices gone up so far this year?
Yes, sir, they have. And they've almost doubled as well. Just for the same reason, supply and demand. Now we have more owner operators who were venturing out to open their own companies, and they may want to, they have a cousin who drives too. So now they need 2 trucks. And so once business started booming, now they're on the market for trucks. And because of the COVID shutdown, as we all are aware, when the shelves started getting empty, the parts suppliers, they were short on parts to make these trucks. They were short on workers. They were short on manufacturers. They're short on employees. So the supply and demand for actually purchasing a semi-truck increased as well. And so since the prices went up for parts and maintenance, the prices for the trucks went up too.
Wow. And I know this is unrelated, but I was just in my beloved Publix just yesterday looking for something as simple as green tea. It wasn't on the shelf. So
Yes, sir, Quintin. Your green tea is probably being unloaded from the vessel in Savannah and hasn't gotten here yet.
Wow. And let me ask you this. Speaking of, obviously, the semi-trucks, but let me ask you this. What's the average cost per mile to operate this?
That's a very good question also. And it does vary. Just like let's use the regular automobiles, for example. I'm not sure what you drive, but my daughter drives a Nissan Sentra. So the price to operate her Nissan Sentra versus the price maybe to operate your Range Rover is going to be a little different. But usually the price per mile to operate the semi, like a fairly, I'm going to say, we're going to call it a mid-year semi, so something that's not too old or something that's not brand new, based on the mileage of the engine, the size of the engine, and the price of fuel. Price of fuel per gallon. It usually does run at least like $3 a mile to operate the semi. And as you mentioned about the prices being so low before COVID, the trucks, we were only being offered about half of that. So it cost them $3 a mile to operate their semi, yet we were only being offered $1.50 a mile from customers. And that's because there were so many competitors in the market. So they could call me and say, Corisa, how much would you deliver this to Charlotte for? I would give them a rate, keeping in mind how much it requires that truck, to operate it. I would give them that rate. And then when they come back and say, well, the company next door will do it for $200 cheaper. I really want to give it to you, but can you match their rate? And so with a lot of trucking companies in the industry, I think that's what kept the rate so low for so long. And we finally kind of took a stand together, which is another reason that this expo was so important. So that we could build these relationships, that we can talk amongst each other. I like to call it industry standards. But if we don't get together and communicate, then they don't know, what we're operating at. There are some people who are entering into the business that don't even know how much it takes to operate their truck. So that's the kind of information that we plan to share, and that we want to help make sure that everybody that's in the industry or in the community or associated with the trucking industry is aware, exactly what it does, what's required to get your green tea to the shelf.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm really going ahead of myself, because obviously the expo's coming up on Saturday, and you want to get all that information out then. But
no problem.
How does the average person go about setting up a company?
And really, to be honest, there are a lot of people who have no experience in the industry. They've just heard, they may have an uncle who drove trucks for a long time, maybe their husband works ILA at the port. But you do have to, truck driving is regulated by the Federal Motor Carrier Association. So the Department of Transportation does monitor all trucking companies, and they're required to obtain a motor carrier authority number as well as a US DOT number. So you have to go through the Department of Transportation to get registered. You have to have a CDL driver who operates a semi truck to register with their local state in order to activate your company. And that is, like you said, something else that we'll be discussing at the expo. But you don't have to have a CDL yourself, Mr. Washington. If you wanted to open a trucking company, you just have to have a driver who could drive your semi. But you would have to file all of the documents with the Department of Transportation and get your Federal Motor Carrier Authority number as well as your US DOT number for you to become a trucking company.
And I'm so silly sitting here just talking to you about trucks. You know what? I don't know how to drive. I don't drive.
Guess what? Neither do I.
Wow. Wow. Let me ask you this. I know you talked earlier about the competition out there in this industry. Who is your competition?
Well, Charleston probably has over 300 trucking companies. A lot of them are like corporate owned. So they have, they own their own trucks, and they put drivers in their trucks. They're W-2 employees. And so we're all competing for that same freight that's coming off of the port. And even with over 200 companies here in Charleston, sometimes we still don't have enough trucks to maintain that. So my competition are those, the local companies here in Charleston, those that are owner-operator for companies, or whether they're corporate companies, like when I say that, you probably heard of Swift Transportation or JB Hunt, so those are what I'm calling corporate companies. And then you'll have companies, logistics companies like myself, who don't drive, but we find loads for owner-operators, and the owner-operators pay us a percentage.
Wow. So where do you see that percentage going next?
I like to be a realist, and I would love to say that I see that percentage going up. However, I don't. I believe that it will probably. I don't believe that it will go back down as low as it was before, but I believe that there'll be a happy medium in between where we are now on the higher end versus where we are on the lower end. So since more people are entering into the industry to do it for themselves, I may have to look at my rates, and I may have to make adjustments and, offer a lower percentage in order for me to keep my owner operators happy.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Speaking of more people, Ms. Corisa, let me ask you this, and you know this as well, but there are more and more people moving to the Charleston area, and this particular small region is growing. How do you and your company keep up with that growth with smart growth?
Well, that is another good point that you have that you just made, Quintin. We actually, due to the influx of people, the housing markets in Charleston, property is getting snatched up. It's getting sold. Since we are a company, I have 6 staff members and the 43 owner operators. So we usually kept like 40 containers out of the port that were en route to be delivered, and we would pull them to our yard. Well, we got a 30-day notice to vacate our yard at the beginning of August because that property was bought up by somebody that is larger than us. So as a small business owner, the growth in a large city like Charleston, whether it's the housing market, whether it's, the professionals coming in to work at Boeing and Mercedes and Volvo, and they're buying houses. The property and the growth of Charleston is really affecting our community. The more cars on the road, I hate to say it, equals more accidents with big trucks. You still got a lot of people who cut off the big truck and doesn't want to be behind the big truck. So we see more accidents. We're seeing less availability for property, so that we don't have like a home to put our 40 trucks. One of the places that we're at now, the subdivision, they don't allow the trucks to park in the subdivision. They think of them to be an eyesore. They think of them to be loud. So that's another reason that we wanted to introduce, we wanted to make this a community event for the expo, because we want to work together with the community. We're a part of the foundation of the community. So as Charleston grows and as the number of trucking companies grow here in Charleston, we want to make sure that the platform that we are a part of the community, and we're not the bad guys. Like the TV commercials that say, were you involved in an accident with a big truck? We were like, oh my gosh, we don't want to be the enemy. We want you all to know, we want the community to know that we're working for the community. So that growth does hinder us, because there are a lot of different factors that go into what we need, as far as like yard space and office space and delivery instructions, and just to turn around in an area. And if everything's being built up and for the housing market, then I'm afraid that we'll be pushed a little further and further out, like Jedburgh and going even further than that. And once that happens, that's going to drive the rates up a little more also. The closer we are to the port, the cheaper we can charge somebody, to pull it off the port. But now if I have to move a container from the Wando terminal on Long Point Road, and the closest yard that I have is Jedburgh, then that price is probably going to increase by like 4 times the amount.
Wow, that's a very important information I didn't know about. And I want to get more. I want to get to the expo in just a second. But let me ask you, how many companies have moved over to Charleston, obviously, in the past 6 months?
Well, the one thing about the new startups is a lot of companies start up with 1 or 2 trucks. Like we were mentioning, maybe, you open your company and you get your uncle to drive for you and you get your nephew to drive for you. Well, they're not as large as I am with the 40 trucks. So they may be able to operate, kind of from their home, whether their office is, like they have home office, because it does present a lot of opportunities for people to work from home. And I believe that's why they started questioning it when COVID hit and a lot of people started working from home. So they may not need as much space, the new startups companies, because they may only have 1 or 2 trucks and then they can still work from home. But if larger companies wanted to come in, there's pretty much your past the Clements Ferry Road exit, like, North Brett, Clements Ferry Road, those used to be like our trucking hub areas. Those are like the only hub areas that we have left. Downtown Charleston, like near the old Columbus Street terminal, and down there off of in like the Rosemont area. When I first started, I worked at 3 or 4 companies down there. Now you can find no trucking companies down there at all. You've got the high rises going up. But for those that don't need the space, that can work from home, it really hasn't, there's not a percentage that affected them. Those larger companies like myself, if we were to move into, if a developer was to move into Commerce Circle and they were to displace the companies that were there, then I would say that would be 70% of our trucking population.
What's the trucking population right now?
Well, we have over 200 registered companies just with Charleston addresses. 200 trucking companies that are registered in Charleston. It may just be 1 or 2 trucks. Like 50 of them may only have 1 or 2 trucks, but there are over 200 registered trucking companies for Charleston.
So let me reset before I don't want to get myself in trouble, but let's talk about the Charleston Truck Expo. Who, what, when, where, and how?
Okay, well, thank you very, very much. And that is what I am here today. But like you said, you offered me that invitation to come back, and I would love to keep this dialogue moving. Because even after the expo, this is stuff that I would like to share with the community, and I would like to answer those questions for your audience. And so this Saturday, September the 17th, at the Exchange Park in Ladson, we're beginning at 10 a.m. It's an all-day expo event, so we do have vendors that are set up for the community to walk through and stop at their tables. They can get information on health insurance, life insurance, business startup, graphic design, web development, realtors will be out there to tell owner operators and small business owners what they need to do to qualify to purchase a house. Because a lot of those in our industry are 1099 employees. So most of these smaller trucking companies that are opening, we are all small business owners, which means we have no corporate backing. We have no corporate benefits. So we have to go and find our own health benefits, our own life benefit, our life insurance. So we wanted to make sure that those vendors were available. But I also like to have a good time. So I thought maybe if we threw a DJ in there and put a couple of beverage services, and Charleston always likes a good food truck.
Yes.
So we've got three of the best food trucks, 3 or 4 of the best food caterers will be inside selling their sweet treats. We'll have smoothies available. There will be a nice little obstacle course for the kids in the kids zone, so they can bring the kids and get them something to eat for lunch. If you don't want to cook on Saturday, even if you don't know anything about trucking, you can still come out and eat and get a beverage and listen to the DJ and have a great time. But we will have a panel of industry speakers. So beginning at 11:30 that morning, we'll have different speakers who are going to speak on our industry, the current conditions of the industry, the question you ask, how much does it cost to operate a truck? We'll have a specialist there who deals with the cost of diesel fuel and how you can and how you maintain and operate your truck as the changes of the prices change at the pumps. And we'll have a freight forwarder who will speak about her journey into the industry. We will have a business startup counselor who will actually be speaking and telling everyone exactly what's required for you to set up your business and set it up correctly. And we'll also have a tax accountant who specializes in trucking taxes. And Miller Mott will have a representative there talking about CDL enrollment. And we are very excited to be working with them because we are also donating 3 $500 scholarships. So for anyone, if you know someone who's interested in getting their CDL, or if they plan to enroll to get their CDL between now and the end of the year, they can apply for one of our Joseph H. Wright Jr. Memorial Scholarships in the amount of $500, and we will be donating that to their school of choice here in the local Tri-County area.
Wow, that is amazing. So, Ms. Corisa, if I want to go to this expo this weekend, how can I sign up?
Well, Quintin, all you have to do is call me. But for everybody else, if you can reach us on Facebook at the Charleston Truck Expo. Today begins Drivers Appreciation Week. So I'd like to thank everybody that gets us our supplies to those shelves. If you got it, a truck brought it, and we do appreciate you drivers out there if you hear me. So we will be running a special on Facebook for Driver Appreciation Week. If you go visit our page, Charleston Truck Expo, like and share a post, we will inbox you a special buy one, get one ticket, half off promo code. And you can also visit our website at charlestontruckexpo.com, and you can go to the purchase tickets link there. It will connect you to Eventbrite. So you can go to Eventbrite directly, and you can search for the Charleston Truck Expo on Eventbrite. General admission tickets are $25. We're offering a professional package that will include a t-shirt as well as a chance to enter into the raffle. So as the speakers come on Saturday, we'll also be raffling different prizes throughout the day, some gas cards, some CM Trans bucks so that you could spend it with vendors there at the expo. So you might win free lunch for the family. We're going to give away some mentorships for those who want to get into the business. I'm going to give away 3 mentoring sessions, and I have a sponsor, Lady Logistics, who's giving away mentoring sessions. We're also going to have our grand prize would be a cruise for 2. Wow. And the top grand prize will be a set of semi-truck tires. And that's valued over $6,000, Quintin. You may say, hey, I don't have a big truck, so, do I want to enter the raffle? But you may know somebody that has a big truck, and they'll purchase those tires from you. So we thought that would be a great gift and a great way to give back to these guys who work so hard for us. And none of this would be possible without our sponsors. So I would like to thank the company authority that we run under is Cowan Intermodal Group. We are Cowan Transport Services when we pull out of the port. So Cowan is one of our sponsors out of Baltimore, Maryland. As soon as I contacted them with this idea, they said, let's go for it. Let us know what we need to do. So they'll be there. They'll be speaking on the industry and the longevity of having a trucking company nationwide. and also WW Drayage. She is also another woman in logistics like me. She's out of Savannah, and we have met and we've connected and made relationships. So she's one of my closest friends, and she's also a great sponsor. CLC, which is a chassis leasing company. They are one of our sponsors. They jumped on board as soon as we mentioned it because, once again, relationships, dialogue. They want to get out there and get ahead and explain to everybody how the chassis process works. And then Excel Realty here in Charleston.
Oh, yes.
They are always community supporters, and we would like to thank Mr. Stephen Kahn and his team, Excel Realty Charleston. So he contacted us and found out, to ask how he could support and purchase the sponsorship also. So we have great sponsors. We wouldn't be able to give away those scholarships without them. We wouldn't be able to have the kids zone. So we do want to thank our sponsors. And again, I want to remind everybody, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. all day long. You can pop in, pop out. The Charleston Radio Group will be on site from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. So you'll get some tunes spun on the outside, and we'll have some giveaways for them. And like I said, it's going to be a great family-filled day.
That's amazing. And, I had Stephen Kahn on Quintin's close-ups earlier this spring, so he's a great guy.
Great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But Corisa Carter with the Charleston Truck Expo, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's close-ups.
Thank you very much, Quintin. Have a great day.
Likewise.